Recent studies over the last few months have suggested that gardening and plants helped many of us through lockdown, especially because it was the spring and the glorious summer, and that plants have the potential to improve mental well-being. Well, Monty Don is arguably Britain's most loved gardener. His new book, My Garden World, The Natural Year, is about his observations from the immediate world around him, wildlife, insects, and all the other things that share the garden with him. I've been speaking to Monty and asked him how important gardening and plants might be as we face yet more restrictions and possibly another national lockdown, but this time in the autumn.
This is going to be a hard winter for a lot of people because one of the great benefits, and it sounds odd to talk about benefits coming from lockdown and COVID, but we had this miraculous spring. April and May were as good as I can ever remember it. And people were forced to be there, for the first time for many people, to experience it through the daytime, to sit and wait and observe and watch. And that kind of immersive, rather passive way of experiencing nature is something that is increasingly rare for many, many people, whether they have a garden or not. You know, we scurry off to work and our headphones are on and our faces are in our phones and we barely notice what the weather or the seasons or what we're doing. For the very first time, people could just be there and notice the blossom and notice the birds and the little creatures and whether it be the dragonflies or whatever. I think with the winter months coming, and it's darker and it's wet and it's cold, that is going to be tougher. And in fact, I've just been writing about it today. I think it's probably even more important is to get outside and try and immerse oneself in the seasons because it's cold and wet and dark. You know, that rather Nordic thing of going with the flow of the seasons and letting it be a harsher experience. Planning ahead, and that buys you into the future. And I think the message of this is, rather than seeing the winter months as a kind of sump that the year descends into and then we climb out of the mire in spring, it's actually much more part of the rhythm and the flow, and you need to go into that phase to rise up.
Now, you yourself have been quite open about suffering from depression in the past. I mean, does gardening, does being close to nature actually genuinely help you overcome depression?
I don't know if it helps me overcome depression. It certainly helps relieve it and put it into a kind of a context that makes it manageable. And there's a lot of work being done on this, and increasingly other people are having this experience. And I can only speak from personal experience. But getting outside, whatever the weather, and just doing something. And I think that is really important. And I think also this sense of being part of something bigger, the rhythm and flow of the seasons. And one of the features of depression is a kind of terrible inward-looking self-obsession that one loathes and despises, but is there all the same. And I think that to look outward and see life, albeit, you know, not at its prettiest, is very empowering in a sort of subterranean way.
So nature changes, nature grows and then withers despite everything going on inside you. And there's nothing, it's not got nothing to do with you, it just does it on its own.
It does it on its own. And I think there is this thing that I mean, what we were talking about earlier, we know now that although the coming months are going to be bleak, we can invest in spring. And actually you can take that inside you, that you feel bleak at the moment inside you. But if you trust that there will be a flowering within you, that spring will come, that's powerful.
Very powerful indeed, yes. You know, I think so many people, especially as we go into a new lockdown, and people feel that the confinement is returning, but without any of the novelty that we had in the early spring, without spring itself, it's going to be tough for people, isn't it?
It is going to be tough, and this is where, as a society, we have to help each other out. And I think one of the great virtues of early lockdown was this sense of a greater good, and we've got to draw on that again. And you know, the general disillusionment with those that are leading us, and I pity them, for God's sake. It's not an easy job, but there is a sense that actually we have to draw upon our family, our friends, and our wider community, and somehow do it together, because we're in uncharted waters. None of us have had to experience this before, but I think it's human qualities and the connection with nature and the connection with each other. This is all bound up. These are not isolated things, and we're going to have to tough it out. We will do it. We will do it, but it isn't going to be easy.
Again, that's another lesson from nature, isn't it? Everything passes. So.
Yeah, exactly. And everything passes. And, I think one of the things that is really important, and as I get older and older and ancient, is that just hold each moment dear, just treasure the little things. Because actually that's what lights up the day. And this idea that there is going to be a grand change that's going to make everything all right isn't true. I mean, one of the lessons of life one learns, that never happens. What happens is the sunlight on a leaf. It's that friendly face you see, or just the little things, the robin that sings clearly. And we have access to this on our doorstep. It's not remote. It's not wildlife out there in some rainforest or glacier. It's right here and now. And that I think, in a gentle way, is a great comfort.
You're a great communicator, Monty, but how important is it for people like you to communicate with the rest of the country, especially in these moments of isolation and crisis?
Well, I mean, one doesn't want to aggrandize these things, but certainly I know with Gardener's World, it was felt by the team and by the BBC that it was really important that we kept going, and we've done so under quite sort of difficult circumstances, and the filming has been extraordinary. It's all been done by remote cameras. I think that if you have a vague sort of public presence, you do have a duty to share what you can, but I don't have any hugely inflated ideas about that. We, as you know, with your job, you do your best and you muddle on and you make mistakes and you try and get it right. But I think one of the great things about gardens and the countryside and gardening is that there is a sense of community. And whenever I fly in over Britain, which I haven't done this year, by the way, I haven't been abroad this year, I always am very moved by the row upon row of back gardens. This sense of cells, of little cells that are entire unto themselves but connected. They're all part of a bigger whole.
Lots of little garden worlds.
Yeah, lots of little garden worlds, but making up one big world.
Monty Don, the book is called My Garden World. It's a wonderful book. Thank you so much for coming on the programme.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.